Hello and welcome to Postfly box step-by-step video. This is the Zebra Copper John. This one is going to be tied using the size 16 hook, using the medium gold bead, adding an additional weight with the lead wire. Tail is stripped goose biot. The body material is alternating red and silver parawire. The wing casing is backing sticker material. Thorax is consisting of a green dubbing and some little gills on there. We're going to use some mallard flank. So we'll go ahead and remove our sample. And the first thing we're going to do is attach our bead, and I like to use my vise as a helper. When you put on your bead, you're going to want to put it in on the small hole first, leaving the larger diameter opening to the rear of the hook. Once that is secured, we can take our lead wire. I'm going to do this as a counter wrap. I'm going to start back here on the bend of the hook. I'm going to squish this all down, and I'm just going to take 7 or 8 wraps. And go ahead and trim off that last little bit. Fold that down, compress those wraps, and we'll take that and jam that into the bead. Get a lot of that dense weight up front. Once our lead is secured in, we can cast on our black tying thread. We're going to work this down. We're going to take this down just into the bend a little bit, using the full length of that wonderful curved hook. Next, we'll take our stripped goose biot. Let's go ahead and isolate 2 of the barbules. Trim those off. We're going to set one off to the side because we're going to tie these in one at a time. Want to measure it out proportionate. We're going to take 1 hook's length. We're going to set this on the near side. We're going to have it curving out. So the underside of that barbule, that fiber, is going to be facing out. Secure this one all the way forward. This will help maintain the proper taper in the body. Take our thread back to that tie-in point, where we're going to take our next one and do just the opposite. Line up the tips. There we go. And we'll come over here and trim this edge. Alright, once our tail is tied in, we can take our parawire. We're going to tie that in. I found it best to just go ahead and unravel the whole thing. And we're going to tie these both in. Go ahead and take the loose end and just jam it into that wire, or into the bead. Take a couple of wraps of one color. We'll put the other one in. And we're going to bind these down side by side. Be mindful of the tip of that hook because we're working way far back here into that bend. And we'll take our thread forward. Not quite all the way up to that bead. We want to leave room for our thorax. And we're going to do counter wraps. Now take note of which wire is at the rear. In this case is the red wire. We're going to make sure we keep that consistent. Whenever we pass it over, we want the red wire to follow the silver. And in between every wrap, we're going to take my thumbnail and just kind of make sure it's nice and tight, touching wraps. And that'll result in a nice zebra alternating red and white pattern. Keep your wraps nice and tight. Once we get to that thorax area, we'll secure this down with some nice tight thread wraps. And we'll trim off our excess. Now you could definitely trim this off to a shorter working length, but I find if you can work with the full length, you maximize your material. So we'll go ahead and mash those tips down. Next we'll tie in the sticker backing. And I'm going to tie this sticky side up. So I can just use my thumb to hold it on there. We're going to tie this on the top side. We're going to fold that over here in just a minute. Alright, time for the dubbing. We're going to want to make a nice, tightly compressed dubbing noodle. A small little piece of dubbing. A little bit goes a long way. When you're working with dubbing, typically a good general rule of thumb is less is more. We're going to compress that down nice and tight. Build our thorax up. I'm going to take my excess and just kind of strip that down and out of the way. And for our little wings or gills, whatever you want to call them, we're going to take this mallard flank and we're going to pull a piece out perpendicular, lining up the tips. And I'm just going to go for about 6 or so barbs. Line up those tips and strip that off. We're going to come around and bring this all the way over here to this near side. Take 2 loose wraps and we can shorten it to length. Very subtle little detail in this fly. Trim off our excess. We'll repeat the same for the other side. Once again, we're just going to take some of the barbules here. Line up the tips, strip it off. Two loose wraps. We can adjust the length. Lengthwise, I want them to extend no further than the body. One more locking wrap and we'll trim off our excess. Now we can take our wing casing, or shell back, a couple more tight locking wraps. We'll trim this to length. We'll build up that collar just a little bit. Alright, finish the fly off with the old 1, 2, 3 whip finish. 1, 2, 3. Secure that down nice and tight. Trim off our thread nice and close. And we're going to take a little drop of head cement. And that'll be it. So there you have it, folks. That is the Zebra Copper John. This is tied on the size 16 hook from Postfly Box Fly Tying subscription. Thank you for watching. Happy tying and tight lines.